It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show!
Hey there, everybody. It is the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey, gang.
Les Webster.
Hello, all.
And Liz Newman.
Hello, everybody.
How are you guys doing?
Great.
Well,
Delightful.
Hope everybody out there is doing okay. So what's been going on in your corner of the galaxy?
I don't have a whole lot going on in my little corner of my galaxy right now.
Oh,
Lord.
Christ.
I did watch a little bit more of Daredevil. I'm still, I think, 2 episodes as of tomorrow. I'll be 2 episodes behind. So, it's getting better. I think this is going to be one of those shows where it's the slow burn, you know. Take you a minute to chug up that hill, and once we get that hill going, we'll go down it. So, yeah.
Slow burn, your favorite, huh?
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of theories online about what storyline this is, and it's starting to make a little bit more sense. And it's like, okay, I've never been a big Marvel reader, so it was like I kind of remember that. So I had a friend who sent me a clip where a guy was like, yeah, I don't know, should I mark this as a spoiler? And in the first 5 minutes of the first episode, Foggy dies. And they're hinting now, which of course we haven't gotten there to this. This is how slow things are going. That Foggy may have faked his death. Now this is a comic book, not the show. Just the show, he's dead. That his girlfriend, Karen, kind of helped, cover that up. But in reality, I think it was Vanessa, which was Kingpin's wife, had orchestrated the whole thing and kidnapped Foggy after, everybody thinks he's dead. And Kingpin kidnapped her lover, Adam, and they were like in 2 separate dungeons, right? So, and apparently the issue all this happened in was like 468. And in the beginning of the show, they do kind of pan out and they show that the apartment building right beside them is 468. So people are like, oh, it has to be it. And I don't know. Cool. I really wasn't thinking that was what was happening until the last episode I watched. They show that Adam is in a dungeon. So it's like maybe they are leaning into this faking the death kind of thing. But after I looked into this a little bit more and everything else, there's a clip of the guy who plays Foggy. I forget what his name is. And a fan had walked up to him, and he had said, man, I just watched the first episode, and, oh, man, I just got to give you a hug. Well, the guy gave him a hug, and he says, hold on. And at first it was kind of like, oh, how sweet, he was comforting a fan. But now I'm thinking he used the words hold on. Mm-hmm. Kind of like, wait a minute, don't write me out yet kind of thing. So it's kind of, maybe this is the storyline that Disney's going to tell us. So kind of interesting, And people have made comments about how this Daredevil seems to be a little bit more acrobatic than the Netflix Daredevil, which maybe so, but I will say that I I am enjoying the Disney version. Don't get me wrong, because that's going to be a cool storyline if that's where they're going with that. But I did enjoy the Netflix series quite a bit. The fighting style, it was kind of gritty. It kind of went with the series with Jessica Jones and Luke Cage, and what was the other one?
Iron Fist.
Iron Fist. Kind of it fit the whole tone, so it wasn't just a single series that they were selling to us. It was the whole universe here. I think with Disney, that's kind of being standalone. They're doing a pretty good job. Like I said, it is moving slow, but we're seeing more of the skill that Daredevil has. I don't know, maybe it's my female side. I'm kind of enjoying seeing the emotional side of him, because he heard Boggy's heart stop. That's kind of made him, question everything he's done in life. So I kind of enjoy seeing that. Kingpin, no, he's not the vicious guy that we know him to be, but his roots are cracking. We're starting to see that. He can only wear a mask for so long. So it's kind of like, I think people who are, writing him out too, it's like, hang on. It's coming, I think that's what it's building up for. I think it's finally building up for Daredevil to take his rightful place, and it's going to be against Kingpin. With all the other stuff they're throwing at us, that's going to be the ending of this one. It'll be between them two. But yeah, like I said, that one's pretty good. I think there's, after tomorrow, because they drop on Tuesdays, there's only one more episode, so that match better like.
Well, for this season, yeah.
For this season,
Right.
yeah. But
because I think it's being done in 3 parts.
Okay.
So you got these.
Well, that would make sense.
7 or 8 episodes, and then there'll be part 2, because they're already working on part 2.
Yep.
Well,
They're
they're
already
going to
filming
have
part
to.
2.
They're going to have to give you some sort of cliffhanger thing.
Oh, yeah.
Season 1 then.
Right.
Well, just to wrap up season 1, because, like I said, this has been kind of slow to get up and going. So you can tell they're building to something. I didn't know it was 3 parts. That makes a lot of sense. We're in the.
I believe it's 3 parts. I know there's at least a second part, but I thought there's 3. It's in 3 parts. They're like 3 seasons.
I could see that. I hope it's successful enough that people aren't tuning out before it gets to where it's going, because
that always sucks.
it does.
You don't get
It
the whole
really
story.
does. Because then when it finally happens, you're like, God damn.
Right.
That was pretty good. And now we won't get any more because nobody was watching. But another slow burn show I've been watching is White Lotus on HBO.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the kind of person to keep up with weekly serials. It drives me crazy because, I want to know what happened.
You have to wait a whole week, right?
Yeah, I kind of got suckered into this one. I wasn't expecting to watch it, but I didn't know that the 3rd season was ongoing. So I kind of got suckered. But man, after watching the first few seasons, and then I don't know if it's because I'm not binge watching this season, but it's slow. It normally by now, because there's only 1 episode. After yesterday, there's just 1 more episode, which we've got to find out who died. But normally by now you have an opinion put together and you can see where things are going. They haven't done that. I'm still waiting for that. Aha, here's the killer, But in the meantime, there's so many cringy storylines that's kind of like, I didn't think it could get worse than the whole brother deal, but then it did. And then it was like, okay, well, it can't get worse after the I want to be an Asian, which if you're watching White Lotus, that's not a racial thing. It's a context thing that the guy was talking about. And then this one, it's like, come on, dude, let's get off this fetish, because not too many people tap into that. So yeah, hopefully next week I'll be able to go, oh man, he pulled one over, But I'm kind of, the way that this one played out, I don't know where a fourth season would go, but I didn't know that some of the people would show up that did in the third season. So I don't know. I do like the guy who's writing. I think they said he was a contestant on Survivor, which I think I've said before accounts for the beautiful scenery we're getting because, I mean, I'm a background nerd. And we're definitely getting that. So I guess that kind of makes up for a little bit of the story that needs to pick up, and let's move it. Kill someone. Come on.
Sheesh.
Right? But yeah, other than that, I'm still not doing a whole lot. I say that, but so much, My the baby has gotten into art, so we've been doing that, and I know I'm really biased, but she's really good. Really good. She picked up markers, and it's not just markers, it's alcohol markers, and it's kind of like, wow, when did you learn how to do that? But every day it's something new, reading me a book, sitting down and coloring with me, and yeah.
They grow
And
up
I'm enjoying
fast.
it now. Yep.
Right.
Because once the weather gets nice, we're going to be outside, and we miss all this inside stuff. So, yeah. Yeah, she got birthday next week, 6. So,
She'll be
wow.
driving before you know it.
Oh, don't say that. So I called her. I call her baby girl, and she told me the other day, I'm not a baby. And I said, you know what? I said, you know how old your dad is? And she says, yeah. He's like 100. And I said, yep. I said, he's still my baby. So, I have a 100-year-old baby. Which then I'm thinking, dear God, how old does she think I am?
I wouldn't assume she's making a distinction at all.
I don't
I mean,
think
old
so.
is just old, really.
Yeah.
Until you get to a certain point.
But B, she doesn't think is like an adult. That's her friend, kind of like her cousin, and it's like, no, that's your adult uncle.
Right, she's your uncle. Right.
That's your dad's brother. Yeah, and she's agreed to share everything but B with the new baby. So that's going to be interesting.
That's going to be interesting.
Yep. That's her gamer buddy. She's hit that age now where you ask her what she's going to be when she grows up, and it's a gamer on YouTube. So pray for me.
I mean, she's young enough you can let her dream for a while.
Yeah.
It's okay. Mine was 10, and he thought he was going to be a professional basketball player. He was literally the shortest kid in his class. He's still the shortest kid in his class. But anyway, he did come to his senses eventually on that one, but it took a little while.
Reach for the stars.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or he's reaching because he damn sure can't reach them.
Right.
I was about to say, let him talk to Spud Webb.
Well, it's a thought, but yeah. Also, anyway, I don't want to go that route, but
Yeah.
he wasn't really that good at basketball anyway, so he was good at running around. That he could handle.
Yeah, that's about all I got. And I'm reaching when I throw the baby into the mix.
Uh-huh. That's okay.
Oh.
Reaching's going to be a theme here because I actually don't really have much of anything. I spent a good chunk of this past week doing our homework for today. tonight. And the rest of it I spent dealing with family stuff, and then adding we're working on figuring out a problem that we've got. So they've been, it's funny because they've been threatening to shut down Skype basically for about 4 years now.
Right. They have.
Because it definitely lost the online call fight to Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And so then Microsoft developed Teams, which is a lot more competitive with Zoom. And they're starting to finally realize, well, I mean, like I said, they were threatening they said that Skype was going away soon. I kid you not, it was at least 2021 when they said this.
It's like before the pandemic, wasn't it?
No, I think it was right after.
Okay.
Or kind of, yeah, in the
During,
middle of it.
When they lost their popularity to Zoom?
Yeah, when Zoom got real popular. And I mean, I think they had already developed Teams at that point, but nobody knew anything about it. So so Microsoft kind of lost the battle. And they finally, it took them another year or two to get to where people, at least on a corporate side, adopted Teams. But they never really, they said they were going to shut Skype down, but they kind of never did.
Forgot.
Yeah. I mean, they got so into Teams, they just sort of let Skype fall by the wayside. Well, I think they finally remembered that it's there, and they're like, oh yeah, we're going to shut it down in May. Well, we've been using Skype to record these things basically since the beginning of the podcast.
Yeah.
So we're having...
That's all I've ever connected on.
Yeah. I mean, when we did the stuff
Didn't y'all do YouTube before, or wasn't it YouTube?
Well, we were, I mean, yeah, when we were still doing the web show, I mean, we started on Ustream. Is that right, Tom?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then we'd switched over to Google Hangouts there near the end. And yeah, Google Hangouts basically went straight to YouTube.
Right.
Yeah.
So, kind of.
We're still on YouTube, kind of, right?
Yeah, the show posts to YouTube every week. Well, when we post, it posts to YouTube.
Yeah.
We're getting good again. We're doing fine.
Right. Finding our groove.
We're going to be like 3 in a row here. It's going to be kind of cool. But yeah, so we're working in the background on finding a new way to record. We have a couple ideas in the works. We just have to do some testing. But we started that process this week, sort of, barely. But like
I guess testing, we're doing a mic check. You okay?
Oh, God.
Wow. That hurt.
My head hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
My brain hurts.
I could say this wasn't a Lester Thomas check, it was a mic check.
We've been having everybody checks lately, but anyway.
Yeah. So say this weather has been crazy. We were like, 90 yesterday? We were 40 by morning.
Was it 40? I didn't think it got below 50, but okay.
Too freaking cold.
It was a big swing, I'll give you that.
But I fell asleep with the windows open.
It's quote unquote spring in Texas. What do you want? This is the way it is.
Eyes are all puffy and my nose is like, give me a break.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and if you leave your car outside, it's covered in yellow powder.
Oh
by
man,
morning.
Along with dust.
Right. That's not even considering the dust. There's dust on top of that now too. Because, We regularly have 40-mile-an-hour sustained winds around here.
Right.
Because of where we are, geographically speaking. It's very weird. This is a very weird area.
It is. We're about to get wet for a whole month. Hopefully.
Yeah. A week ago,
our lakes need it.
A week ago, they were saying, "Oh yeah, there's no rain in the forecast forever. Basically, it's never going to rain again." And now, like, every frickin' day, there's at least a 30% chance of rain.
And usually, it's just enough to get everything wet. So, like with me, we can't go outside because it's muddy. You know, beautiful, but it's muddy.
It's enough to it's enough to make the dirt muddy. But it's not enough to knock all the pollen and shit off of your car.
No, that just makes it stick.
Right. It makes
like
it
glue.
Hard. Yeah, you can't use your windshield wipers on it because it's just bad.
Yep.
Who knew we were going to spend all this time riffing on the weather? But obviously we're old.
Right.
But yeah, so that's all I got. I mean, quiet week for me, really. Well, we'll get to what I was paying attention to here in a bit, but otherwise, pretty quiet week.
Okay, Les?
I have been seeing some films on TV, and for some reason, I choose them not knowing the production company, and I've ended up picking so many Troma movies.
Oh, God. It's hard to pick those by accident, man. I'm just saying.
Well, what's the algorithm get you, man?
I got no idea. But yeah, I'm picking those and watching them and going, oh, that's okay. Oh, that's crap. So it does help along with the choices, but good Lord, some of those are bad. And of course, there's things like Samurai Cop, Sergeant Kabuki Man, various things like that, which are funny, yet they don't give you any real pleasure to watch. But that's been about all for me, because just trying to fight my way through to find some decent movies and just not having any luck with it. So if anybody has any locations, let me know. That's about it.
Oh man!
I'd never thought there would become a day where he complains about bad movies.
Right.
But dude, Troma.
I know. I've seen some of them. Yeah, I know.
Isn't that where James Gunn's controversy came from? The Troma films that he made?
If you want to call it that. Yeah, he got his start at Troma, I believe. That sounds right.
And Blippy.
Okay. For me, I'm still on YouTube doing all this stuff. I'll tell you one body cam video story, because I love the ending of it. It was so great. And then I'll tell you about the other channel that I talked about either last week or the week before. But okay, the story is officers are going to this restaurant where there was complaints of a couple being disorderly and all that. And of course, they're intoxicated. So, you know, they find them and talk to them and all that. And the woman's an EMT. But you're going, okay, an EMT's drunk. That's not good, but okay. So they talked to him, and they kind of got calmed down and all that, and they just said, you know, why don't you just go ahead and walk home? If you're that close, just go ahead and walk home. We're not gonna do anything. Like, okay, thank you and all that. Well, all of a sudden, the woman, in her stupor, says, I hope, and she's talking to the police. She says, I hope y'all don't get hurt because I'm not gonna help you. We go, wow, okay. Then turns around and tells the lead officer, who's black, calls him a son of a bitch, and the N-word. So, needless to say, she's taken right to jail.
Good.
Because he lost. He was being so nice to him and all that, and she does that bullshit. It's like, okay, I'm taking you to jail because I'm a son of a bitch. So he's getting her in the car. The husband starts kind of complaining, and he says, the officer goes, if you stop and talk again, you're getting a ride. So just freaking leave. So he does. So the officer takes her to jail, pulls in. Everybody there in jail already heard what happened. So here comes about 3 or 4 officers, most of them female. One of them goes up to the investigative officer who was putting up his weapon and kind of consoles him a little bit. And then they go around, open the door, and automatically start giving this woman hell. She's like, get out. I mean, not please get out or anything like that. It's like, get out. Almost like saying, get out, bitch. So she gets out, and they turn around and says, get your shoes. We're not gonna get your shoes. Get back in there, put your shoes on, and get back out. She's like, I need help. And they're like, you're not getting fucking help. Get back in there right now and get your shoes. And she goes, well, I'm an EMT. You know, one of the officers is like, you're gonna need an EMT if you don't start doing what we're telling you. I'm like, oh God, this is gonna be a long night for this bitch. But that's okay. I don't have a problem with that. Oh God. I'm like, wow.
Some just don't know that they're lucky.
It was so freaking uncalled for, this attitude from her. Anyway. So, remember me talking about the retro channel that's been doing short-lived TV shows for particular seasons? Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning, the new one for the 84-85 season was released. And I watched that yesterday morning. We're recording this on the Monday. And I made some notes about some of the ones that were kind of not so much the premise, but just looking at the cast, because we're obviously getting to later and later, so we're starting to see some more familiar faces. So let me just point out some of the ones that caught my eye. One was called Call to Glory. It lasted for 22 episodes, so pretty much an almost entire season.
Elizabeth Shue? No.
Yes, Elizabeth Shue.
Was it?
Yes.
Okay.
She was the daughter.
Played the daughter.
Played the daughter of Craig T. Delson.
Mm-hmm.
And Keenan Wynn was in it as well. And this was the story of a family that was living on Edwards Air Force Base, and this is the early '60s. So there's that one.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Next one. When they started playing opening credits, it's like, this looks familiar. I kind of remember the opening credits, but I don't remember the show. It's called ER, and I'm talking about E/R. Yes, there was another show called ER, obviously. But this was a comedy, or a comedy drama. Lasted 22 episodes again. Starring Elliot Gould and Mary McDonnell and Katrina Farrell from 2.5 Men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, that caught my eye, but the reoccurring actors caught my eye too. Luis Avalos, most would know him from Electric Company back in the day.
Oh.
Karen Black.
Okay.
Jason Alexander. And George Clooney.
So ER wasn't Clooney's first ER show.
That's right.
Huh.
So was it medical in any way?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Neat.
Oh, and supposedly and from what I read read up a little bit about it, it was kind of a dark comedy, and it was funny because they talk about being a dark comedy, and they compare it to MASH. I'm like, maybe that's the reason why Elliot agreed to it, because he did MASH. You know,
very possible.
I mean, maybe.
I don't know. Anyway, here's one that really surprised me. I did not know this one. It was a sitcom, lasted 13 episodes, regarding stories that happened at a legal aid office. The show was called Sarah, and Sarah was played by Gina Davis.
Okay.
In the cast also included Alfre Woodard, Bill Maher, and Bronson Pinchot.
Huh.
When Bill Maher was trying to be funny. Yeah, okay.
He's still trying. But...
Well, yeah, he's still trying, yeah. Another sitcom, Off the Rack, which was a comedy about the garment industry that lasted 6 episodes. Starring Ed Asner, because you think about Ed Asner when you think about garment industry, so yeah. Eileen Brennan. Dennis Haysbert.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yes. And for those who are not coming up with the image, how about the President from 24 or Pedro Serrano from Major League Films?
Mm-hmm.
And Claudia Wells, Marty McFly's girlfriend from Back to the Future.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So. Okay, here's another one called Half Nelson. Lasted 9 episodes. It was a detective comedy / drama starring Joe Pesci, Victoria Jackson, Fred Williamson, Dick Butkus, Bubba Smith.
Damn.
Which was funny because Dick Butkus and Bubba Smith the previous season were playing supporting roles in the Blue Thunder TV show that lasted half a dozen episodes. So it's like, okay, we'll just move them to this other show. Yeah. But they were already popular because the beer commercials they were doing.
Right.
So it's like, well, let's just keep
also
them
their
together.
NFL careers. But yeah.
Well, true, yeah. Well, but I mean, yeah.
But yeah, the Miller Lite, right?
Yeah, Miller Lite, I think.
Yeah. So
the mainstream viewers knew them from the commercials. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And
there's more.
Yes, the person who gets the "and" starring is Dean Martin as himself.
Okay. Wow.
That's kind of an interesting cast right there.
Was he on one episode or more?
No, he was on all 9 episodes.
Oh.
He probably had a bit part, but hey.
Right, they're going to ride the name, if nothing else.
Right. This other show, I remember this, but I don't remember watching it, but I do remember the show called Partners in Crime. It's about 2 ex-wives whose former husband was murdered, and they were left the mansion, which was about to be foreclosed on, and the detective agency. So they became detectives. And the first case was trying to solve his murder. Starring Linda Carter and Lonnie Anderson.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Oh, wow.
That lasted 13 episodes.
Because they only had so much hairspray.
Well, from what research I saw, Lonnie requested the show to be canceled because her mother had been diagnosed with cancer and she wanted to get out to take care of her.
Yeah.
So.
Ouch.
Yeah. One more show. The only reason why I'm pointing this out is I'm sure Liz would like to find it. It only lasted 6 episodes. The premise is a woman who's a psychiatrist who runs a radio talk show. So people call in with their problems and she helps them out.
Dr. Ruth.
The show was called The Lucy Arnaz Show.
Huh. Only 9 episodes, huh?
6.
6?
Yep. So, it was kind of fun looking at that, yeah. Yeah. Just watching those credits and seeing, seeing some of these faces go, oh God, they were so young. There was one of them that had, one of the last ones that was mentioned was Terry Farrell. I was like, ooh, I didn't even recognize her. She was so young then back then. I mean, this was several years before DS9.
Mm-hmm.
Star Trek DS9. So, anyway, so there we go.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That is cool.
So, okay. On that note, we're going to go take a quick break, and then we'll get into this week's discussion. Welcome back. If you listen to the podcast for any period of time, you know that in October we do all the horror month, and we'll discuss certain horror films or scary films, that type of stuff. And in April we usually do a special episode, and that is what we're doing today. It's tied into the theme that we'll be doing later on this year. So for our special episode here, we are going to be talking about the 1963 film The Nutty Professor, starring Jerry Lewis and Stella Stevens. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
Our first Jerry Lewis film. Hey.
And we managed to find a way to squeeze it into the horror genre. That's always fun.
That's always fun. So let's talk a little Nutty Professor.
I liked this one. I think it's a good watch for sure. I remembered watching this one, but it had been a while, because I think when he did his telethons, didn't he always play his movies during those?
No.
No?
But they usually played them like around that.
Yeah.
I mean, Nutty Professor's one that has been played a lot on TV. So
Yeah. I remembered watching it, but I had to rewatch it just to kind of refresh my memory on that.
Mm-hmm.
But didn't they say this was kind of his take on Dean Martin?
I have heard that, but from what also I have heard that it's more him. It was more what he was like away from the public.
Two different people. I could see that.
The buddy love, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jerry Lewis was known to kind of play the dumb part. Or I hate to put it that way, but he was not always the brightest person, and
he was kind of the clown.
Right. You know. He was good at it. He played it well, which was kind of weird when you saw him at the telethon and stuff. So I could see how you would want to turn that off, But I did like this one.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think about who the character of Buddy Love was. I can sort of see it as being more like him than he usually does, but
yeah.
I don't know. I mean, obviously there are parts of the character that are turned up to 11 because they need to be for a movie like this. But
yeah, he was a quote monster.
Kind of. I mean, I've also seen interviews with him where he actually is not really all that nice a guy, but
Yeah.
Not to speak ill of the dead and all. I mean,
although
you get a lot of ego in Hollywood, in various forms and styles, but
yeah,
it's cool. It's not like he's the only one. I'm not really knocking him for it at this point.
Right.
As a girl, though, if a guy came up to me and was all like, "Oh, you're gonna love me because I'm hot," I'd be like, "Nah." I don't know why she was swooning over the spiel he was laying down. He was competent, but
well, she didn't.
A little overconfident.
Yeah.
It didn't last long. I mean, the deal was she was quiet about it. I mean, but if you're watching her eyes, she's definitely not buying his bullshit after about minute 4 of that whole thing.
Yeah. Well, and I think she was catching on to. I think she knew who he was before he revealed who he was.
She strongly suspected, at least.
Mm-hmm.
At least. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she did know.
And I'm glad they didn't go the corny route of, "Oh, I recognized his eyes." No, honey, you didn't. I mean, but so I'm glad they didn't do that, because that's always like cheesy when they do that.
Yeah, I actually liked Stella as a character. I thought she held her own pretty well. I thought her. She didn't take much shit off of anybody. I mean, she took more off of Buddy than she should have, but otherwise, I liked her. as a character. I thought she carried her into the movie pretty well.
I think she was more curious than interested, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the thing is that was written specifically for Stella Stevens, that role.
Cool.
Was it?
Yep.
She's pretty. She was very pretty.
She was a very lovely lady.
She was, yeah. Funny that this movie comes up. We just talked about it not that long ago.
Right. Believe me, I thought about that when.
Right, because this was already on the schedule.
Yes.
Yep.
I was like, oh, the timing's really good.
It is. How convenient. You do this long enough, and your timing looks good when it happens.
Mm-hmm. What did we talk about her in?
She was left off of last year's in memoriam for the
That's
Oscars.
Right.
So her son Andrew did a documentary.
He's making a documentary, or made.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's been released yet, but I think it's already done.
I'm pretty sure it's done. I hadn't seen anything. I need to look again. It's been a bit since I've done any research on it.
Yeah.
She died at the age of 84 due to complications of Alzheimer's disease.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a rough one.
That is. I'd hate to die that way, where you pretty much forget your life, you know.
Well, I mean,
it's a little more complicated than that, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, with dementia, a lot of times what happens is that they can remember everything that happened to them 50 years ago, but not something that happened 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Or the memory is really spotty, so they have kind of lucid moments where they do remember stuff and where they can hold a conversation, but it doesn't often last long, and you don't know when it's going to disappear. So yeah, it's really hard on the people around them.
I bet.
Really hard.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that with just recently with the whole thing with Gene Hackman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thinking about that last week of his life, and he just
didn't know anything.
Right,
didn't realize what the hell was going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to me, this movie really proved what the French said for many decades, that Lewis was a genius. The guy was able to could play most anything he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a true selling point of him. When I sat and watched it, my wife was with me. She kept cursing me because she's not a Lewis follower. And I can understand that. That's her choice. I'm going to have her kicked out tomorrow. No, to me, it was just one of those things where he was able to play the roles, and he's talented. Granted, to me, he was not that much of a singer, but he knew what he was doing when he was in front of a piano, things like that. Mm-hmm. And to me, that made a big difference. Too many times we have somebody that thinks they can sing or act, and they really can't hold up to either one of them.
Yeah.
So the plot was simple. It was concise. It was one of those that anybody could step in on. as far as if you're watching it, if you're a viewer, then yeah, you could step in and go, oh, okay, I know what's going on. There's nothing bigly dramatically about it, so to me it was fun. It was pure fun. And at that time in '60, people still needed fun in their lives because we had so many other things going on that you didn't want to be left out and just feel like you're out of everything.
Yeah, it was a weird time.
It was.
Kind of in the heart of the Cold War there.
Yeah, it was.
So yeah, escapism is a thing. It's kind of an important thing on a societal level.
Yep.
Pure escapism. And of course to have Stella Stevens, former Playboy Playmate there, helped also. Very beautiful young girl.
She was.
One of the things kind of surprised me when I went back and watched this, because it's been, like y'all, it had been forever since I had seen it.
Yeah.
Which was, I'm not sure how much credit Lewis was given for the acting in this film. I mean, he's traditionally playing the goofball, the hard luck, and not that smart. Well, he's playing a professor who's smart. He's just very klutzy and socially awkward, and then also he's playing quite the opposite. And I thought, and he did both of those roles very well.
I agree.
And it just, I hadn't really seen, and maybe I just hadn't been looking in the right places, where people talk about that. I mean, they talk about this being, being a good film, and it's lauded and all that, but
you don't see a lot of critical review of it.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, he directed this movie.
Right.
True.
I mean, which is no easy feat when you're playing one role. But when you're effectively playing both or two of the three starring roles, I mean,
yeah,
I give him credit just for all of the friggin' work he had to do to get this made, you know?
Yeah. And he also co-wrote the script.
I was going to say, I'm sure he had a hand in the script, too. I mean, technically so did Robert Louis Stevenson, but because that's going to be our big connection later, is that, I mean, if you think about it, this is a Jekyll and Hyde story, which is an interesting place to go for a comedy.
I agree. To use Jekyll and Hyde as a storyboard is a little unique. Of course, it's been done now several times, but
primarily because of this.
True. This opened up a new range for comedy. Now, granted, comedy had been using monster figures long before this, but this was a nice thing to have join them. And that, to me, is crucial.
Right. It's a commercially successful feature-length film, which is
Yeah.
a comedy version of a horror story. Technically science fiction also, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, on his IMDb, it says that in one of the DVD commentaries, Jerry Lewis revealed that he received a lot more fan mail addressed to Buddy Love than he did Professor Kelp. This made him feel that he should have made Love's character more evil than just obnoxious. I'd agree with that.
It would have changed it would have taken the comedy a lot darker, but
yeah.
I mean, yeah, I have to admit that as much as I appreciate the two extreme characters that he played, yeah, Buddy Love was really just more annoying than bad.
Yeah. It was just kind of sleazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was like he was trying a little too hard to be cool.
Yeah.
In the era basically that invented cool.
Well, because his polar opposite was that he thought he was a nobody, you know. Mm-hmm. So to be a somebody.
Yep. I mean, and yeah, that's a big part of it is what's the opposite of Kelp.
Yeah. But even in that, he was awkward. And he had made that comment on stage. He wasn't aware of what he did. He was aware of what he did. I think a lot, especially with the girl. You know, I think if he had the confidence, he would have said that as Kelp. You know.
Sure.
So he knew what he was saying. He knew what he was doing.
Right, which is not always the case in Jekyll and Hyde stories. Which is why you can sort of hide that if you want. But yeah, I mean, he almost had to have known.
Yeah.
I mean, he may not have been in control, but he was certainly present.
Yeah, and those were his feelings that were amplified.
Exactly. Now I'm gonna piss all of y'all off.
You didn't like it.
I actually didn't like. I didn't like the movie in general. Like I said, I can appreciate the performances. I can appreciate the fact that he turned a horror story into a comedy movie. I think that's amazing. Kelp and Buddy Love were both a little too over the top for my taste. Both were, like you said, both were based on awkward. And awkward funny has always rubbed me the wrong way. It is always a hard nope for me. I just can't stand it.
Yeah.
Which is why I don't really appreciate a lot of modern sitcoms on TV, because it's often based on awkwardness, and I just can't do it. That said, I would definitely recommend this movie. I know because I have seen people love it, and I know. I mean, obviously, it was successful in 1963, and people still like it, and that's great. And by all means, check it out. But yeah, I didn't like it particularly well.
So did you like the Eddie Murphy version?
Oh God.
No, I didn't get the sigh out of Thomas I was looking for.
I thought it, though.
He thought sigh.
Yeah, I was getting ready to watch this one.
Not as much as everybody else did.
Yeah.
I don't think it was. I think his Buddy Love was not as based on awkward as. I mean, it was. His Buddy Love wasn't as annoying and obnoxious. I mean, he was some.
Yeah.
He was still an arrogant guy, but yeah, and God, I haven't seen it since it came out, and I don't think I ever watched the sequel. If I liked that movie better, it was because of the other stuff, because of the other characters. One of my things about this movie is that, honestly, for my money, the only likable character in this movie was Stella.
Yeah.
Everybody else was obnoxious in their own way. with the possible exception of the secretary. I can't remember the character's name, but Kathleen Freeman.
Yeah.
She was funny. But other than that,
I didn't care for the Eddie Murphy one. Who was the guy that wasn't Arsenio Hall? I forget the other guy that was with him. But yeah, I didn't care for that.
I mean, most of for the Eddie Murphy one, most of the people in the room with him were him. So you know, he did a lot of that.
There was one other guy that he always did movies with.
He and Arsenio Hall did something similar to that in Coming to America.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
Maybe so. And he dressed up and everything.
Yeah, they were the old guys in the barbershop and a couple of other different sets.
And Randy, what's his name, the singer.
Yeah.
And they also played women in bars. Yeah, they had multiple positions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe that's what I'm thinking. It was Arsenio Hall.
Yeah. Right guy, wrong movie.
Yeah. Huh.
What about the other parts of the cast? Who was it that played his dad? His father?
Howard Morris.
Howard Morris, yeah.
Yep, he's been in some stuff. He's a pretty funny dude, too.
Quite a few stuffs.
Mm.
and Henry Gibson.
Yeah, we got a Henry Gibson spotting in here. He's one of the college students.
Yeah.
We got a Richard Kiel appearance in here, very briefly in the gym.
And Buddy Lester as the bartender.
The bartender was kind of funny.
That was. Yeah, I like these kind of shows, though. These were always deemed safe. And it seemed like, especially, I mean, we had cable, but cable wasn't like cable is now. You know?
Yeah, there weren't hundreds of choices, even on cable. If you got 30 channels, you were doing good.
Yeah.
And that was in the 80s.
And I miss Saturdays when they played movies like this, you know. And cartoons.
Man, you're really on a nostalgia kick lately. I mean, Our show is literally about nostalgia, but still.
Yeah. That's where our kids went wrong when we yanked their cartoons off TV.
What you mean we?
Yeah. Say they're still on my TV.
I got them over here.
Yep. You know what I'm talking about. Those Saturday morning block of cartoons. You just couldn't wait to watch. And then instead of interrupting it with, you know, like football or something, that's when movies like this would come on after the cartoons.
Yeah. Damn them footballs.
Yeah.
Damned old sports ball.
Foosball's the devil.
Wow. Starts with D.
Yeah, well, so was Elvis, but anyway.
Right. They played him on Saturdays, too.
Yep.
Then you had Kung Fu Theater, where you got a little bit of Bruce Lee and David Carradine, and, you know. God. They just don't do Saturdays like that anymore. Actually, the closest I've gotten, there's a channel called Heroes and Icons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Saturday and Sunday mornings, they do Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, I think then MacGyver, and then it goes to Walker, Texas Ranger for a couple hours.
Your whole fucking childhood right then and there.
Right?
Oh, man.
Which is cool because I haven't seen a lot of the Batmans, you know.
We're talking 66 Batman. Right.
Adam West, yep. Burt Ward.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, my time, that was reruns, syndicated. So,
Well, sure.
But yeah, and same with Superman. I've seen a lot of those because, my daddy and everything, but watching those over, even as long as I've been watching them on Saturdays now, there's still a lot that'll pop up. It's like, oh, I don't remember this one.
Right. Sure.
And it's cool with Superman because it changed from black and white to color. And then I think we had talked about it when we did the show, what was it, The Man of Tomorrow or the movie about his death. But he was in an accident. And so he told him after that, look, you guys screwed up my back. I'm not flying anymore.
Right.
I am not Superman. And you can tell when they made that change and this, how it's different than the actual show you've been watching.
Right.
His hair is different and,
Right. They're using a stunt double now.
Well, it's him, but he let him take one shot. Or I think they've got like 2 different shots of him flying.
So it's more like stock footage then.
Yeah, they spliced it in there because he's like, I ain't doing that. So you'll see him land and take off, but after that it's all recycled footage.
Hey, don't knock recycled footage. This Three Stooges made a damn career out of it.
Yeah. Well, and it kept him flying,
Mm-hmm.
So you got to do what you got to do.
It worked, at least well enough.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's the closest I've gotten to that kind of stuff. And then, of course, like I said, his telethons.
Yep.
I don't think you could get a kid today to sit through a telethon.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you couldn't get a kid then to sit through a telethon. But
that was Saturdays and Sundays.
Yeah, it was Labor Day weekend.
Yeah. It was either watch that or
there wasn't
go play in the snow.
Right. There wasn't a ton else on TV anyway back in those days. Like I said, cable was just a handful of channels, and broadcast had 3.
Yep.
So it would tie up an entire network for a whole weekend.
Mm-hmm.
It was for a good cause, though.
It was. What was it? Muscular dystrophy?
Mm-hmm.
MS? Yep.
He did a lot of good.
He did. He definitely did. And he knew so many people. I mean, those telethons were star-packed.
Jam-packed with stars, yep.
And we were talking about his acting and stuff. He starred with some big names, but he held his own. You always knew him and his part, and never really overshadowed by anyone,
Uh-huh. How intentional that was, we'll just sort of let that go for the moment. But.
Right. But, to stand up, I mean, especially Dean Martin at the time, that was a huge name,
Well, they were partners for years.
They were.
I mean,
yep.
they were a package deal for a long time.
He definitely held his own against them. And, Dean Martin had the crooner voice and the bedroom eyes and all that going for him.
Right, he had the pretty boy thing going on.
He
and was actually pretty good at playing the straight man.
Yeah.
Turned out later.
Color me shocked.
Right, turned out later he could be funny too.
Yeah. As I say, he dabbled on both sides, so.
I still got to go track down those Matt Helm movies. I am still very curious about those.
They're available maybe on Tubi or something?
Yeah, there's at least one on Tubi. I don't think it's the first one, but I don't care at this point. I don't need to see them in order.
You can watch Ambushers, Wrecking Crew.
Yep.
There was one other one, I think.
Oh, I was thinking there were 4 or 5 of them.
No, I think they held it off to 2 or 3.
Yeah, they stopped doing. They had I remember looking this up at one point. I remember they had a reason for stopping. I think they were basically getting their butts kicked by the Bond franchise. But anyway, yeah. Still, I think they would be interesting to see.
They are. They're fun. What do you say, Thomas?
I enjoyed the film. It was nice seeing it again. I do want to point out Kathleen Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
Man, she's done 12. She did 12 films with him. She's basically the Margaret Dumont to his Groucho Marx.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
You know what else she did?
What?
She was the Penguin.
Yep.
Yeah.
In the Blues Brothers.
That's right. Very funny lady.
Mm-hmm. Very.
Maybe a little underappreciated, but
yeah.
But she was a good foil for him.
Mm-hmm. And she did a lot of other stuff too. Her IMDb is a mile long.
Right. Yeah.
Was she in Cinderfella?
Pretty sure, but
I would say she probably was.
But yeah, I enjoyed the film. I get what you're saying. It seems like regarding the fact that it seemed like really none of the characters are very likable, except for Stella. I mean, the dean, of course, the football players, and all that. It's just like, you know, there's kind of a negativity about them. But still, it doesn't seem like it affects my enjoyment of the film.
Right, that's
weird.
just a me thing. It's a me thing. I totally admit it that it's me. Like I said, I would 100% recommend other people watch this movie. Parts of it hit me the wrong way, and it's just
no
worries.
It's valid.
Mm-hmm.
It's valid. I mean, the whole thing with the teasing, and I don't know. I get that because, I mean, I encountered some of that kind of stuff when I was younger. I mean, we all did.
Yeah.
We were all teased. Because we were all socially awkward. Some of us are still are.
Mm.
I resemble that remark.
I didn't point fingers.
You can point fingers all you want. We can't see you.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Good point.
I'm awful about social interactions. And then, of course, your anxiety kicks in and you, like, examine everything you said, like, 2 months later. Like, God, that's so cringe. Why did I say that? I bet they think I'm weird.
You're talking about us? No.
Oh, yeah.
I'm quite the opposite. I'll be laying in bed going, I should have said this, damn it.
Yeah.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
On this movie, I give it a thumbs up.
Yeah.
Big time.
I'd give it a thumbs up, too. It's good for some laughs and a good message. We're talking about being socially awkward. Be yourself, you know. If people don't accept you for who you are, then you don't really need those people around you, you know.
All right, now we're at the risk of getting deep here.
Yeah. Well, he did there at the end where he was, what did he say? Was kind of like hit home. He said something about
if you don't love
you
yourself,
have
how can anybody else?
yeah, you have to learn to love yourself because at the end, that's who you're going to be stuck with the whole time. Which kind of showed how alone he was, but even to say I feel alone and I don't even like myself and that's who I'm alone with, that was just sad.
Yep. But hey, it worked. You got the girl.
Yeah. I am glad that she saw through that, and because she kind of seemed like she liked him before all of that anyways, getting him to come out and would talk to him and helped him out of the closet. Well, that sounds bad. Helped him out of the closet,
Doesn't it sound bad? I mean, geez.
Especially when we were just talking about Dean Martin,
We'll try to think of it as a storage room, not a closet.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I think she kind of had a crush on him without all of that. And I think sometimes, too, that's hard for people when you don't like yourself. Why would she like him?
Right, it's harder to see that in others, for sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I said, I liked it. Definitely good message. I don't know if I mean, it is horror, but I don't know if I would have thrown this in the horror category.
I don't think anybody really did, but it is based on
a theme,
one of the staples of modern horror. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, I've got issues with this movie, but I still recommend it. I think it's definitely, it's a good example of what it is. And what it was very popular, so it went over well. So it's worth checking out.
And I did notice a lot of his stuff is over on Pluto. Amazon does have it where you can buy or rent, but like I said, a lot of it's over on Pluto, though.
Cool.
Yep. He's got a lot to choose from.
Yep.
Well, I recommend the film, and I recommend Liz go get another cup of coffee.
I second that.
I don't know if she should be drinking coffee this late, but anyway.
If I didn't have to get up at 5:30,
Oh, just stay up all night. It's all right.
Right.
That's fine for a couple of days, but.
Seeing that this is Monday, I think I'm past my couple of days.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, on that note, we are going to take a quick break and be back with Geek News for you. And we're back, and it's time for Geek News for you. In this segment, we bring a couple news items to the table for discussion. And this week, it is Les and myself. And Les, would you go first, please, sir?
Thank you, sir. I am going to bring a story about DC's absolute titles. And in this, I'm going to tell you that the DC Absolute for Martian Manhunter has been extended to 12 issues. This is kind of surprising because the book was put out just last week, toward the end of March, and they obviously already have enough storyline to fill all 12 issues with no changing of artist or writer, which is kind of unusual at this time. So from this, the Absolute Martian Manhunter will follow the Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, and Absolute Wonder Woman storylines. And in this, John Jones, FBI agent, and the Martian Manhunter that he is now banned to have to find out about a terrorist explosion that almost killed Jones. So I have not seen this on the rack myself, but that doesn't mean it's not there. I'm just interested because they're not only respecting the Martian Manhunter and his previous story, but they're even expanding it more, which I think is well time overdue. So I'm looking forward to this, and I hope that it does as well as its predecessor did. So that's what I've got.
Good.
That sounds like fun.
That does. I've looked at a few titles that they have out that I need to collect.
It's been a while since he's had a solo book.
Yeah.
So.
Too long. Dang it.
Well, it's funny how both news items are comic book related. It's been a while since that's happened. For me, you may know that there is a new book, or it's been out for maybe a couple of months now, called The All New Venom. And they started up a mystery because apparently Venom has a new host.
Okay.
As a result of the Venom War, which just completed. Marvel has been throwing up this mystery of who's the host, and the suspects that they had been listing were Rick Jones, Luke Cage, Madame Mask, and Robbie Robertson.
The guy from the band? Sorry.
Nice try. But like so many events, it seems like marketing has to jump out and screw things up, because we're supposed to find out Wednesday who the host is, but they've already revealed it.
Of course they have.
Mm-hmm. Anyone want to take a guess who it is?
Not one of those names you listed.
That's a good guess.
I'll second that.
Of course you do that now that I said that.
Or what is it? I agree
Stacy.
with the previous statement.
Yeah, right.
I agree with the previous statement, yep.
Gwen Stacy.
Close.
Mary Jane
How about
Watson.
Mary? Yes.
Wow. Just wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of my thinking too. I would really like to know whose decision this was. Now, Al Ewing is writing the book, but that doesn't necessarily mean he's the one that came up with the idea.
Right. In fact, it's probably unlikely that he came up with the idea.
Yeah. So, we'll see. I mean, from what I've seen of the early response to it, it's pretty much what you would figure. So it's been kind of negative, leaning toward negative.
Which means it won't last long, and then they'll go back to the way it was.
Yeah, because apparently Eddie has the Carnage symbiote. So I don't know what the hell Cletus is doing. So I don't know. But I hadn't read. I've never really been a big Venom fan, so I hadn't really read a lot of that stuff.
Right.
But it is kind of interesting because when Venom first appeared, he terrorized Mary Jane to get to Peter, because that was back when they were married.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that they're together, something has happened for them to actually to coexist, and I don't know if I care enough to find out what that is, but
right. They seem committed to the character for some reason.
Well, Marvel seems committed to where they will never get Peter and Mary Jane married again. They can't be together again. Right. Peter's got to be the playboy, because that's the way he's always been, a playboy. Right.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did you ever read Spider-Man? Yeah.
I know, but they've seen the movies where he's real tight with Tony Stark, so he must be a playboy.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep, has to be. So. All right. What's your thoughts, Les?
I was hoping it would be Madam Mask, but okay.
Yeah, Oh, well.
I don't know who Madam Mask is either, so what the hell?
All right. Any special shout-outs or mentions this week?
Not me.
No.
Nothing here.
I want to do one shout-out. Some of you may have seen something about this on social media. I guess it was on March 26th, Dylan Struzan, the wife of legendary artist Drew Struzan, and if you're not familiar with that name, Google and look at the images. He's done some incredible posters for Star Wars, Raiders, Harry Potter. An awesome artist.
Yep.
She is taken to social media to state that Drew has been diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Oh no.
And he's already to the point where he can no longer paint or sign anything.
Oh, that's a bummer.
So, what she was basically asking for was for people to send encouraging words to him through the social media, because they read it all the time, and that's helping him because he's obviously struggling with this.
Yeah.
So obviously our thoughts are going to be with them through this tough time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
sure.
a rough one.
So, all right, we'll move on to our regular shout-outs. I want to thank Pop Goes the Culture for allowing us to be part of a great podcast network. Definitely check out our fellow shows. There will be a link in the show notes. We also want you to check out the fine men and women who've been kind enough to spread the word of the fellowship on Twitter by retweeting our links. And that group of people are known as Podern Family. So just do a search, hashtag Podern Family, all one word. Just scroll through whatever catches your eye. Please, please, please click on that link and download the episode. And we hope you have a great time listening to them. I want to thank Manny the Martyr for supplying music to our show. In our show notes, there will be a link to where you can check out some of their other music. And finally, you, dearest listener, thank you for downloading and listening to today's episode. We value your feedback. The several ways you can reach out to us. Our email address is email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. Or you can go to the website, go to the About Us tab, and there's a contact form you can fill out there. We do have a Discord that you can come join us. We post a lot of news items, stuff for discussion, stuff to laugh at, stuff to kind of check out. We do have a feedback section in our Discord that you can post your thoughts there. There is a open invitation on our homepage, and sign up for Discord is free, and the apps are free on the App Store. Social media, we're on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks, on Instagram, Twitter, and Bluesky, we're at Fellowship Geeks. If you'd like to follow our personal Twitter accounts, Mike can be found at Mikey Geek. Liz can be found at LN_Geek. Les may or may not be found at Fake Les Webster. And I can be found at TomTC Geek. And from wherever you download our episodes, if you'd be so kind as to rate and review the show, it would be greatly appreciated. Anything else before we say goodbye?
Just thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you listening.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate the support as always. And until next time, geek on, my friends.
We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,